Kyle, and welcome to Data Lens, the short series where we talk about market research in the outdoor hospitality industry. Today, I'm here with Scott Barr, the president of Karen Consulting Group. With over 35 years of market research experience, Scott has a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm here to ask him the questions that you want to know. So let's hop in. On today's episode, we'll be talking about how hospitality connects to the core of outdoor hospitality and the industry in general. So, Scott, anything before we hop in?
Just to say, as we tee this up, that we're in the hospitality industry, and that's really what it's all about. Regardless of everything else, we're in the hospitality industry.
So, what is the hospitality industry, and kind of what are your thoughts on it, and how does it pertain to outdoor hospitality?
First and foremost, when you think about hospitality, it's essentially how you create an emotional connection between your guest and you and your organization. Whether you're a restaurant, a hotel, a resort, a campground, or you're an outdoor guide. At the end of the day, literally, how does that person feel about their experience with you, with the organization? That's hospitality. That's what it's really all about. The other stuff, infrastructure, all those things, those are important. But what brings people back is hospitality. So overall, the idea of hospitality has to be the most important part of anything you consider as a campground.
Definitely. No, I think that campgrounds especially would find that very interesting. So piggybacking off that, what unique challenges does the outdoor hospitality industry face as compared to hospitality in general?
I would say one of the big differences is that in many cases, the outdoors has a much more complex set of interactions that people could have with the staff, with the facilities, and so on. If you're, say, a hotel, in many cases, someone will check in at the front desk, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll use the digital check-in, go directly to their room. They'll lock themselves in their room, probably, and they have very little social interaction with anyone else. The facility itself is usually typically self-contained in one structure, one building. Compare that to the outdoors, where people are outdoors. They're outside, they're milling around, they're interacting with each other, as well as you. The facility is not self-contained, it's much larger, it tends to be sprawling. You have the idea of people having different types of interactions with each other. You have people outside with open fires, maybe. You have a different type of check-in process. You have people who have to get set up at a campsite in many cases. So it's a much more complex array, and the expectations of the guests are very different too. Not just from what it is that you necessarily provide in your infrastructure, but what kind of experience they're going to have. People show up at the campground and they expect some sort of outdoor experience, that there's going to be something else there, that there's going to be recreation and entertainment of some kind. They don't typically do that at a hotel. At a hotel, someone will check in, and that's they may stay in their room the entire time. Even if they go to a resort, there are some interactions, maybe at the swimming pool, but it's a very different atmosphere overall. And again, people have their own accommodations. They're outside. So I've always said that from day one, because I started off in indoor hospitality. I've worked in all sectors of hospitality. I've worked with hotels, resorts, restaurants, quick serve restaurants. I've worked in the product development part. I've looked at developing the facilities for casinos and the experience within casinos. And I've always said that the outdoors and camping and campgrounds is just a more complex interaction with your guests. So you have more typically more touch points, and you have more to manage in terms of how you provide that experience to your guests. And those are the major differences between indoor and outdoor hospitality.
That's fascinating. It's just like really understanding the guest experience and like actually getting, some of that FaceTime is going to help you a lot, right?
Absolutely. The FaceTime with guests is one of the most important parts of what you do in the hospitality experience for the guest. And in terms of touch points, in some cases, organizations seek to decrease touch points. For example, again, at a hotel, you have digital check-in. It's all from your phone. You don't have interaction with staff. In the outdoor setting, there are some campgrounds that are experimenting with this as well. And I think that's okay. I think that's an okay thing to do. Just keep in mind, one, you've removed a touch point. And touch points can either be detractors or opportunities. So my view on that is if you're going to decrease touch points, you should create your own meaningful touch point, which is interact with your guest at a higher level. Ask them questions about their stay. Talk to them. Ask them what you're doing well. Ask them if there's anything that's not going well. Create your own touch point. Again, even when they check out, same kind of thing. If you can interact with them and speak with them, create that touch point. But if they check out and you don't, send them a follow-up email or give them a call or a text. Create that touch point so that it's meaningful. It needs to be meaningful, but always keep in mind each touch point comes with a risk, and that is it can go south on you. Hopefully it doesn't, but if you create your own meaningful one, the chances of that happening are a lot less. And the thing to keep in mind is that if you provide good hospitality, that can make up for a lot of other negatives. So there could be something wrong with a person's site, campsite, not vision. There could be something that doesn't go right. Maybe the weather's terrible. All these things, things that can happen. Some are in your control, some are out of your control. But if you provide high-end hospitality, that can overcome a lot. And that's what people will remember. They will remember how you made them feel. And I think that comes, except Maya Angelou that said that, that it's like people will remember how you made them feel. And that is really what hospitality is all about. And I'll just give one example of a restaurant, a very high-end restaurant in New York City. And they had what they thought was the best staff, in New York, if not the world. The best chefs, support staff, everything. Yet year after year, they were always, coming in like third, fourth, fifth in the rankings of restaurants, and it really frustrated the owner of the restaurant. And finally, one day he read a book on hospitality. I don't remember the name of it because he wrote his own book on this experience. So. But what he said was, it finally hit him that the difference in his restaurant wasn't his kitchen staff, it wasn't the wait staff, it wasn't the sous chefs or the master chef or any of those. It was the front of house. He changed and or retrained the front of house staff, the people who greet and seat and interact the most really with the guests, apart from the wait staff. And when he did that the next year, he was at the top of the rankings, and he stayed there for years, just based on that. Now, nothing else changed behind the scenes. He was serving the same food in the same way he had always done. He made one difference. He changed the level of hospitality he provided, and it took him from being third or fourth place to first. And that to me is about the clearest example I can give about the importance of hospitality and how that can make the food taste better.
That's awesome and absolutely fascinating too, because it's like, as you said, it's like, the actual product thing that you're giving your guests is not actually changing. It's just how they're receiving it, essentially, and how you interface with them. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's kind of literally the face of hospitality. How do you interact with your
Mhm.
guests? How do you
Yep.
create that like key experience? So awesome. No, that's fantastic. So yeah, so I guess kind of thinking in general, because that piggybacks to this next question. So for outdoor operators, I mean, with that in mind, how can they improve their experience and design by studying the broader outdoor hospitality trends in general? Yeah.
First and foremost, I would look at um, what people are looking for in general, but in this case, in this part of what you provide, this isn't about having a swimming pool. This isn't about having a jump pad. This isn't about having cornhole tournaments. This is separate from that. Those are amenities. Those are things that you provide. The hospitality part is something that you have to work on. You have to think about those personal touches. A personal touch can go a long way to how a guest feels. And you can create, for example, you can create a little welcome package for people when they arrive. But if it really relates to them personally, for example, I used this example with someone else the other day, and they laughed because they're from Ohio. So they own a campground. I said, so if you have a guest coming in and you see that their home address is in Ann Arbor, when they arrive, you could give them like a Michigan coffee mug or a sticker or something.
That's clever. That's clever.
And they would really appreciate that. They would remember it, and you'd both have a laugh on it. But that's a personal thing. You understood that person's coming from Ann Arbor. You understand that they're probably a University of Michigan fan. So that's a personal touch. And if you have return guests, the thing to always do, for example, is make sure you document something about your guest, about their experience. So the next time they come back, you know that. If they have a preference for something, it could be food, it could be a craft beer, it could be maybe they have a bunch of kids who love s'mores. You could do the s'mores package, something like that you remember about them, and make sure you tell them. It's like, I recall last time your kids were really into the s'mores, so here's a package for you to have some s'mores with the crew. If that person, when they check in and maybe the registration process, you find out that maybe they're a novice camper, so maybe you go visit their campground with a bundle of firewood and some fire starters and show them how to set up the fire. Yeah, and maybe you just give something like that. Ask them if they're ready, how their food, they're ready for their meals, how are they going to cook and prepare. And maybe there's something you can do. That's all hospitality. You're having a conversation and you're going to up your game by interacting with that person and giving them something very personal. Those people will remember forever that experience. It's really strong. It's really powerful. I know it's hard because you're very busy doing a lot of other stuff. Managing the park itself is a lot of work. I understand that, but these are the things that matter, and it matters more, like I said, than having a jump pad or whatever. Those are the things that establish that deep connection. And I'll give a good example here, because we'll bring this home now we're talking about research, right?
Yep.
Everything I've talked about up to this point has been the result of research. Whether it was research I did with Harrah's Casinos and Caesars Entertainment, or working with the Yum Brands or Black Angus Steakhouse, or KOA Campgrounds. And the bottom line is that, again, we've measured these things. We understand them. And here I'll give an example of how some of this came about. We did research with KOA at the campground level for many years, starting in 2003. And we measured, we did tens of thousands of surveys. And what we did 1 year was we asked the campers if they recalled meeting with the owner or manager of the campground. And among those who said that they did recall meeting with the owner or manager, their the likelihood that they would return or recommend the campground increased by 7 percentage points. That's significant. That's a big jump. That's a pretty big difference. That for you, that could be the difference between a return guest and a not returning guest, or a bunch of returning guests and not so many. So the next year we changed it even more. We asked if the owner or manager was like, if they recalled whether or not they were wearing their KOA shirt, yellow shirt. We asked them if they asked them how their stay was. And then we asked the guests if the owner or manager invited them back. And so now we had 4 questions. Did you meet them? And so on. And at each, the number of interactions at each level increased the likelihood that they would return. So if what we saw was that if someone had all 4 of those interactions with the owner or manager, their likelihood to return improved by almost 20%.
Oh, wow.
And that in my world is gigantic. That's the difference between 60% of your guests saying they'd return and 80% saying they'd return. That's a really big deal. That's money in your pocket. That's money you don't have to spend on marketing. And every one of those people will tell someone else about their experience there. And that's where it is. You can quantify this stuff. We did that. And that's what you can do as well. And, I know I've talked about doing research at different levels here, but the first step is to just talk to your guests, start interacting, start documenting what you do and how you do it, and get to know them. Get to know your guests. The more you get to know them, the more you're going to see opportunity in there to provide hospitality, to up your hospitality game. Think about that more than putting in a hot tub. Though a hot tub is nice, and it's a nice thing to have. But I'm just saying.
Everybody likes a hot tub.
But this hospitality part, unless you're having a conversation with them in the hot tub, okay? Then that's different. So, but overall, that's what it's all about. That's hospitality. And, I can't say it strongly enough. If you focus on that, you and your staff, get your staff on board, you're going to see differences. I guarantee you will see a difference, and you can call me on it if it doesn't work. But I'm willing to bet that if you start focusing on those things, you will see a difference. You'll see a difference in your guests.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all I had for today, Scott. And I think we touched on some great topics. I think that especially, anyone in the outdoor hospitality industry is going to take to heart, because this is gold. This is great information. So, all right. So thanks everyone for joining us today for another episode of Data Lens from Cairn Consulting Group. Today, we covered the outdoor hospitality industry and how it relates to hospitality in general. Don't forget to leave a comment or a question for next week's episode. Hit that like button if you like what you see. And as always, subscribe so you never miss out. Thanks and have a good day.